I want to talk about 2020. I have my annual videos coming up on the Swedish Language YouTube channel later this week after we passed the New Year mark. But looking back at 2020, it's been definitely one of the most memorable years, I would say. I had just left my work. Actually, I left my work in the last day of January and thought I was going to go into the freelance business again. New challenges. And before I did, or as I started doing that, I went to London to VidCon, had a good time, even though I think I enjoyed it more when I was there with people, even though I met people there that I knew. And then I did that sort of spontaneous trip to where Finland and Sweden meets up in the north. Booked it, and then just a few days later I went on a night train and I met all these amazing people, and I jumped into the hole in the ice. And I was in a podcast. It wasn't my first podcast, but I think it was the first podcast where I was present with the people there. And I came home, and then the week after, that's when it hit us. That's when toilet papers ran out, and people were wondering what is this going to be? How are we going to handle this? What can we do aside from staying clear of other people and wash our hands? I don't think we could then realize how long this would last, and also how many people that would be affected. So, and obviously we learned a lot about it. I mean, I remember back then we used to talk about how long the virus stayed on different surfaces, whether it was like iron or wood or plastic, and then the summer came and things got a little easier. The numbers went down, and you could do outdoor activities more and more. And at this point, I did some freelance work for the biggest political party in Sweden. I also applied for a job there, but didn't get it. But I was offered a different job, a position where I was going to come in for a certain time and sort of bring up the competence when it comes to moving images, and especially YouTube. Within different parts of the party. Started doing that. It was good to be back, doing full time again. At the same time, we had just moved into this apartment, and I think we were aiming at maybe staying here for another year or two and then buy an apartment. But at the end of the year, the lease was torn. Well, the lease of the person, the people we rent from. So we were like, where are we gonna live? And like the option, like the last resort, was to stay in a summer cabin out on an island in the archipelago, where some friends of ours have a house, which would make the commute a nightmare, even though most of the times we do work from home. But then there was this day, December 10th, the same day that a year ago I was told that either you take this new position which doesn't fit you, or you have to quit. And I said, I don't want it. And I quit. And exactly a year later, I got the question, do you want to stay on full time? And I was like, And we also got sort of a callback for an apartment that we wanted to rent. Nothing decided at all. But then almost a week later, within the span of 15 minutes, we signed both for the apartment that we're moving into in January, and I signed on for my full-time job. So it was just one of those weird things, like the exact same day a year later. And, throughout this year, even though I haven't traveled as much as I'm used to, I did go to Poland in the late summer when it was still the numbers were still low, for the baptism of my niece. My brother had a baby girl, which is so cool. So looking back at 2020, even though I personally have not been affected when it comes to people close to me, but I do know a lot of people that have been affected, and I especially know people that have not been able to meet with their with their older relatives. I mean, obviously, I met my in-laws and my parents for a little bit, in the summer, but not as much as I would want to. But still, 2020, it was, I don't want to say it was a good year for me, but it was, even though there were the setbacks, I did have a lot of progress, and I grew a lot from it. And I think that I'm honestly, it feels like I'm going into 2021 with an actual purpose, and not just one of those, this next year is going to be the best ever, but we're actually leaving something that's been really tough on us. And now with the first people that's gotten the vaccine, and more as it rolls out, we will actually get to a point, I hope, where we can look back and say, we got vaccinated, we are more safe now. We have to try and come back to this idea of actually being physical, because I think we need it as people, as humans. Get back to being able to travel, get back to the cinemas, going back to supporting businesses, local businesses, and just take this year or this period in our lives as a reminder not to take things for granted. It is so important. And it also shows the character of people. Some people have been really, really good at, following the recommendations and the restrictions. Well, some people have just basically ignored it. People have felt that it's been their right to ignore rules because it's their life. And I guess that's part of the reason why this has been prolonged. And sadly, I have to say, it's also probably the reason why some people have died, because some people have not followed the rules. And I keep thinking back to there was this moment back in March, in the early days, where at one of the train stations here in Stockholm, the commute train stations, there were some kids, being funny by pretend coughing at people passing. I mean, even then I understood what that meant and what that could mean, and I'm not a violent person at all, but I'm not sure how I would have reacted if I had seen it or been affected directly by it. But we learn as people, and we've also learned that everything that is said on the news is not information that goes to every single part of society. We have to be better at that, and we have to utilize both social media and ways that are beyond social media for those who do not use it, in order for more people to understand what is happening in the world that might affect your own community. So yes, the 2020 video, as I look at it, I do get emotional, because even though it's been a year of restraint, and it's still been a year of progress, new people, keeping up with my friends, and challenges. So I'm grateful for my approach to life and how I can adapt to what is happening around me. And I am excited for the challenges that I will take on, and the challenges that will be brought upon me for the coming year. So this channel has not been super active, which is probably simply a result that I've been in a good state, because this channel has been in the past sort of my safe space where I can go and be a little bit more, like this. So whenever I have the feeling that I need to say something out loud, even if it's just for me, even if no one will ever watch the video, it still feels good to say it, because I know for a fact from DMs and emails that some of these videos have really had an effect on people out there. And that is just I don't want to say the greatest compliment, but it's a great satisfaction for me as a person, for me as a turning into an older, not older, but older than the younger man, and being honest about how he feels towards the world and wherever that takes us. So if you've watched through this video in its entirety, thank you so much for believing in me, and thank you so much for believing in yourself. It's a new year. Let's do whatever we can to make it a good one for ourselves, for our friends, for our family, and for complete strangers, because you never know what kind of effect that will have on the world in the future. Good talk.